What a wonderful audience. This is obviously a topic of great interest. Can everyone hear me? Okay. If you can't, please raise your hand. My name is Dan Foster. For those who don't know me, I'm a retired physician who practiced most of my time at Charleston Area Medical Center. And I would like to invite you. This is probably about number 8 or 9 in the most recent series of mini medical schools for the public. Some of you may remember that these were started years ago by Dr. Joe Skaggs. And you probably remember him. This was his idea, and he did it for a number of years. And it finally just kind of faded away, and Dr. Skaggs is no longer with us either. But the idea persisted, and obviously tonight's subject is one of great interest. Before we get started, I want to thank our sponsors for this evening, the Charleston Area Medical Center Foundation, whose executive director and CEO is Brian Cummings. They have been a collaborator on these events for the last several years, and also the CAMC Institute for Academic Medicine, all associated with Vandalia Health. Hopefully, most of you are able to partake of the drinks and other refreshments, and certainly you can get up and do that during the middle of the presentations if you desire. I also want to thank multiple CAMC entities and the LHC group for being here this evening and helping with information given out before the presentations. And also some of you may have gotten end-of-life advanced directing information, which is also very important to all of us. Even a few of you may have gotten your blood pressure checked. So I want to thank all of them for being here as well this evening. Housekeeping, the only thing I will add is the restrooms are down this hall and on your left, if that should become necessary during the evening. We have 3 expert presenters. They will each talk for about 20 minutes. I ask that you don't ask questions during the presentations themselves. We will have time for Q&A at the end, and we will try to allow you to direct your questions to whoever you think needs to answer that particular question. Also, and I'll mention this through the evening, although you don't have them in front of you tonight, it's very important that we get surveys back from this event. They will be sent to you by email. And I will, again, remind you and hope that you'll do that, because that's how we determine what to do in the future in these events. Alzheimer's disease conjures up many images, many fearful and many very disappointing for themselves and their families. There's also innumerable statistics that you see, also very discouraging. Most of you here, and I know that for a fact, and also because you've told me, have a personal connection with this problem. And almost all of us do. And most of us are also aware of the potential for us or other family members from becoming victims to various cognitive defects. We're fortunate to have, as I mentioned, 3 expert speakers who will hopefully take those thoughts and feelings and put them into context with their research and factual information that they will transmit tonight about the disease, about treatment, about prevention, and about the all-important aspect of caregiving. And we hope, and I'm very optimistic, that you will all find this evening useful use of your time this evening. So without further ado, let me introduce the first speaker. Dr. James Griffith is a Charleston native, obtained his MD degree from West Virginia University and completed a combined internal medicine and psychiatry residency training here at CAMC. He is board certified in internal medicine, psychiatry, and geriatric psychiatry, and has been intimately involved with both undergraduate and graduate medical education in Southern West Virginia for many, many years. In that regard, he presently serves as the chair of the Psychiatry Department at WVU School of Medicine here at Charleston, the Charleston Division, where he also is Associate Dean for Student Services. I look forward to Dr. Griffith giving us basic information on Alzheimer's and its prevention. Dr. Griffith.
Thanks, Dan. Good evening. Can everybody hear me okay? All righty. I will follow up on something that Dan mentioned, and I just want to, if you're willing to raise a hand. How many folks in here have been touched by this disease in the respect that either a family member or a friend has had this problem? So you guys know firsthand how difficult this kind of journey can be. And you probably also know, we're going to get some updates on treatment from my colleague, Dr. Aziz, here in a few minutes. But at least to date, treatments for this disease have been pretty limited. And so as a result of that, and some of the alarming statistics that Dan mentioned, scientists and medical researchers have really sort of turned their attention to trying to figure out, can we prevent this? Are there things we can do to prevent the development of this disease, or at least reduce our risk of developing? So that's what I'm going to discuss today, is what things we can do to, we can't pick our parents, right? So we don't have any control over that. If there is some genetic predisposition to developing the disease, there's not much we can do about that. But there are other things that we can do. And so I'm going to go over some of those things. And what I tried to do is sort of take a lot of information and sort of hone it down into what I hope will be practical sorts of tips. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is what we eat. And I would familiarize yourself with 3 diets that you might look up and learn more about. The first of those is simply called a Mediterranean diet. The second is referred to as the MIND diet, M-I-N-D, for Mediterranean Dash Intervention for Neurodegenerative Delay. And then the DASH diet, which is Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. And these diets have a lot in common. There are a lot of common elements to these diets, and I've listed some of them on the slide. They are heavy on fruit consumption, particularly berries. So every day, some fruit, particularly berries, okay? Dark green leafy vegetables, spinach and kale, things of that nature, is emphasized in these diets. Lean sources of protein, fish, chicken, beans, primarily. You do not see red meat here. Limit your red meat consumption as a source of protein, okay? And use olive oil for cooking rather than other forms of fat to cook in. Certainly not lard, and probably not other vegetable oils. Olive oil in particular seems to be somewhat more protective than other vegetable oils that you could use in cooking. Avoid the red meat, avoid processed sugar, avoid excess salt consumption. Those, in a nutshell, are the components of these diets. And it's illustrated, and I don't know how well you can see that. This is a picture of the MIND diet. 3 servings of whole grains every day, at least 1 dark green salad and 1 other vegetable every day, berries at least twice a week, at least 1 ounce serving of nuts every day, beans at least every other day, fish at least once a week, and avoidance of butter, margarine, use olive oil instead, and limit the fried food, fast food, and sweets. So that's the MIND diet in a picture and is similar to the Mediterranean diet in general and the DASH diet as well. Okay, we'll move on. You have to keep your mind working. And by that I mean you have to keep learning. And most of the evidence indicates you must do fairly complex learning in order for this to be helpful. So that means learning to play a musical instrument, learning a new foreign language, taking college-level courses, things of that nature. It cannot be simple types of learning. It needs to be complex, challenging types of learning to keep your mind working to try to reduce your risk of developing dementia. I was very disappointed to learn this does not work. And I like doing it just as well as a lot of other people in here. And I think, and I would also group into this the repetitive games on your phone or on your iPad and things of that nature. They also don't work. Okay? Sorry to disappoint everybody. But what the evidence does show is that people who do these things get better at doing these things. It doesn't prevent dementia. So it's okay to do them. It doesn't do any harm, but neither will it prevent you from developing dementia. I was very disappointed when I learned that because I like doing all this stuff too. It's fun. Okay, next, exercise. Exercise is very important, not just for your heart and your lungs and your muscles, but also for your brain. There's very good evidence that exercise regularly reduces your risk of developing dementia. And the exercise needs to be fairly vigorous. You need to sweat when you perform your exercise. You need to breathe hard. You need to get your heart rate up. So just strolling down the street with your dog doesn't count. It needs to be vigorous exercise and probably should be a combination of aerobic exercise and resistance training to have the best beneficial effect to prevent the development of, see, somebody did that, right? That's what they're doing, right? They're walking their dog. That doesn't count, unless your dog is really moving. An event like this is a good illustration of the next principle. There is evidence that remaining socially active is important to keeping your brain working. That's another part of the brain that needs to work. Having conversation, talking with people, interacting with others. So there's pretty good evidence that socializing is beneficial. And it becomes more difficult as we get older. Maybe we can't drive. Maybe we can't drive after dark. Maybe we don't feel as comfortable interacting with others or going to social events and things like that. But there is evidence that continuing to socialize, continuing to interact with others is beneficial for keeping your brain working properly. If you have any of these diseases, hypertension, diabetes, hyperlipidemia, or obesity, you must make sure you're getting these things treated. This is important. We've emphasized this for years about trying to prevent heart disease. And that's very true, and it's very important. But it also, there's very good evidence now that uncontrolled hypertension, uncontrolled diabetes, untreated hyperlipidemia will all increase your risk of developing dementia later in life. So if you have these conditions, you need to work with your doctor or your healthcare provider to get these things under good control. For most folks, a blood pressure less than 130/80. For most folks, an A1C of less than 7. For most folks, an LDL less than 100. For most people. That's where now again, your goals might be a little different depending on other problems you might have, and you can work with your doctor to figure that out. But in general, that's the goals we're talking about. This is very bad for heart disease and an assortment of other problems and circulatory problems. There's also very good evidence that smoking increases your risk of developing dementia. So if you are interested in preventing the development of dementia, we strongly advise you to quit smoking because it will increase your chance. There's very good evidence that smoking increases the risk of dementia, not just heart disease and vascular disease, but also dementia. You notice the difference in these two pictures of the bicyclists, right? What's the difference? One's got a helmet and one doesn't. Yes, if you do these things, and that's fine, if you like to ride your bike and things of that nature, please, please, please wear a helmet. There is, I've seen, again, I'm sure Dr. Aziz has too, many tragic sorts of outcomes from head injuries from accidents. Make sure you wear your seatbelt, make sure you wear a helmet when you're riding your bicycle, protect your head. Stay off the ladders. That's a tough one, I know. But again, lots of folks in older age group coming in with tragic outcomes falling off ladders. Ladders is the tool which is most frequently associated with a severe injury. Is a ladder, not a chainsaw, a ladder. So protect your head, wear a helmet. Oddly enough, proper dental care is important, and there's some evidence, and this probably relates to the notion of chronic inflammation in our bodies, that if there is chronic inflammation of any sort in our bodies, that seems to increase our chances of developing dementia. And one of the most common sources of chronic inflammation is in our mouths. And so I encourage people to make sure that they take proper care of their teeth, see their dentist regularly for recommended cleanings and things of that nature to reduce the chronic inflammation burden in our bodies. So proper dental care is also an important preventative strategy. I was happy to learn that drinking coffee is okay now. It's sort of come and gone in my time. It's now back in. So the latest information says modest coffee consumption is okay, might even reduce your risk of developing dementia a little bit. So coffee is okay again. Sleep. This is a tough one. Because I think most of us as we get older, we don't sleep as well. And we know that. Sleep gets more fragmented. We don't sleep as deeply. That's known physiology, changes of aging. But somehow you need to try to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. But I will also advise you not to take sleeping pills. Chronic use of sleeping pills and products like Ambien and things like that increase your risk of developing dementia. And they should be avoided. So you want to try to get on a regular cycle, get to bed at a regular time, get off the phones, get off the televisions, get off the iPads, turn off the blue light sources, all that sort of stuff late at night, and try to get on a regular pattern of sleeping 7 to 8 hours per night. But avoid the sedative hypnotic medications. This is sort of a maybe, maybe not sort of, because there is a fairly well-publicized study recently that seemed to indicate that taking a multivitamin every day might reduce your chance of developing dementia. It's a pretty large number of patients that were studied. I think this is fairly safe recommendation. I'm not completely sold that this is a strongly preventative idea, and I would say the same thing about omega-3 fatty acid supplementation. There is some evidence that taking fish oil types of supplements can reduce your risk. I'm not completely sold on that as a preventative, but to me this is maybe yes, maybe no. I don't think it's harmful. I'm not yet convinced that these two are for prime time, but I think more study is needed. Some things that don't work. The proprietary products that are on the television to enhance your memory, so products like Prevagen and Nariva and products like that, do not prevent dementia. So there's very clear evidence of that. They're rather pricey, but they do not prevent the development of dementia. And if you read the fine print, they say that in their product information. They say that, and they acknowledge it, and because it's true. But I wanted to make sure that folks know that that doesn't prevent dementia. And I think that's all that I was going to say. So where is Dan? Dan is going to introduce this. Dr. Aziz is next. So I'm going to give this.
There we go. Thank you, Jim. He's always a great purveyor of information. And I want to make sure you all know there is going to be time for questions, but it'll be at the end when we'll have like a panel. So I can see that there are a lot of people who want to speak up, but just bear with us briefly. Two other things. One, I want to promote, since some of my pickleball buddies are here, I want to promote pickleball. Great for exercise and great for socialization. I mean, it's that's one reason, two reasons why they're growing so rapidly. Also, I saw on TV today that there are studies showing that French fries cause depression. So that's another reason to stay on the MIND diet or the. Our next speaker is Dr. Adel Aziz. Dr. Aziz is a native of Libya and graduated from medical school there in the year 2000. He completed 2 residencies, first at Mount Sinai Affiliated Hospitals in New York in internal medicine, and the second at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland. He subsequently practiced neurology for almost 3 years in Reno, Nevada, and was then on the faculty of the University of Nevada. And then went back to training for training in 2016 when he completed a cognitive and behavioral neurology fellowship at Mayo Clinic. Since then, Dr. Aziz has been in different academic and clinical roles with different institutions, including most recently Charleston Area Medical Center, involving program development and clinical training of physicians, nurse practitioners, and physician assistants in dementia care. Dr. Griffith mentioned that we haven't been doing much in terms of treatment for Alzheimer's and other dementias. Well, Dr. Aziz is going to tell us about what's on the horizon and what's actually present for treatment options. Dr. Aziz.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Aziz, and you already knew my name, and I have been in the area for the last 2 years. I have the pleasure of meeting many of the bright faces here, and I hope that the talk that I will give you some insight of what we have, what we are hoping to accomplish with the new treatment, and what's the hope for the future. So the field of therapeutics or medication to treat dementia have been very challenging for many reasons. Dementia is different than many diseases because by the time people come to us complaining about their memory or communication or decision-making or emotions, the brain has already taken a toll and it has significant shrinkage, degeneration. So when we are trying to fight it back, it's actually already part of the brain is gone. So how can we get it back? So that has been the challenge for so many decades. And we have been struggling to figure a way out to overcome this problem. There is another historical aspect to this problem that for many years, people confused dementia and disease. So like Alzheimer's dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Because by the time people come, we find it out, it's already dementia, and the most common type is Alzheimer's. So people use Alzheimer's disease, Alzheimer's dementia as synonymous. But now we can diagnose Alzheimer's before it becomes dementia. That has shifted the conversation. So a lot of the advancement in the care came from the diagnostics. Now we can recognize the disease before it becomes clinical, and we can recognize it in the milder stages. We call it MCI, or mild cognitive impairment, and we can diagnose it when it's already established and called dementia. So this spectrum between normal and dementia, we recognize it, we break the relationship between the word Alzheimer's disease and Alzheimer's dementia. So I will start from what we have been using for the last 20 years. So the first medication introduced, if you visit your doctor in the 90s, they will tell you that we have nothing to do for Alzheimer's. In 2003, it was the first medication introduced, and the first medication called Tacrine, which is family of medication target one of the chemicals in the brain that's important for thinking. It's called acetylcholine. So that medication was used for a little bit, but it found to cause some problem to the liver. During that discovery period, we came up with to some extent safe medication called donepezil or Aricept. So many people who had someone they love that have dementia, usually they see the word Aricept or donepezil as one of the medications. So this medication, it tried to balance the neurotransmitters, the chemicals in the brain. And the chemical tried to increase is one of the stimulating chemicals in the brain called acetylcholine. This chemical breaks down fast by one of the enzymes, and this medicine prevent the enzyme, keep the levels high. So the benefit of the medicine is twofold, basically. It can help modestly with the thinking, but it can also help with the independence and the emotional regulation. So it has emotional benefit, behavioral benefit in one side, and it can have the cognitive benefit in the other side. So when you visit your doctor, one of the first conversation you will have, if they thought that you have dementia, they will introduce this medication. This medication is designed for Alzheimer's, so there are other types of dementia. So Alzheimer's is one of them, but it's not the only one. So the job of the doctor is to sort it out. Is it dementia due to Alzheimer's? Is it dementia due to stroke and other things related to it called vascular? Is it due to Lewy body dementia? There are different types. This medicine designed for Alzheimer's, but we found it can help with other subsets. So it can be used in that regard. When we start this medicine, usually we started gentle because it targets this chemical in the brain, but the same chemical exists outside the brain. So it's very important for the doctor when they start this medicine, they need to check few things. Like someone have peptic ulcer. This medicine might be troubling because it can cause worsening of the peptic ulcer and it can cause bleed. This medicine also, for someone have heart problem, it can be troublesome because it slows the heart down. So if someone have heart disease and they have electricity problem inside the heart, this medicine the doctor need to be a little bit careful. Many doctors do electrocardiogram to make sure the electricity in the heart is working. So when we introduce this medicine, we introduce it in small dose and we titrate it up gradually, slowly, because the body gets used to it if we introduce it gentle. In old days, people were using it at night, but we found it can cause problems with sleep, including vivid dreams and nightmares. Now more common, we introduce it in the morning. 5 milligrams in the morning for a couple of weeks, see how it goes, then we might increase it to the regular dose of 10 milligrams. What to expect when this medicine introduced? All of those, we call them symptomatic treatment. They are trying to help the symptoms. That's where we started. We started around 2003. So I'm talking there now. I am not in the 2020 era. I'm still in 2003, 2004. So at that time, when I'm having conversation with anyone, I will introduce this medicine as it can help either cause some improvement or cause stabilization. So we found some people benefit from those medications. When we give them, they keep what we have as long as possible. So they can stabilize the situation. So your expectations should be, my beloved one, are they gonna get better? Possibly, probably, but they might not. But over a long time, when we repeat the testing, we notice that they stay the same, which is in itself is an achievement because these conditions are progressive, so things can get worse over time. So we are hopeful when we introduce this symptomatic treatment to keep them where they are as long as we can. So some house cleaning notes about this medicine. As I said, it can cause stomach upsets, it can cause nightmares, it can affect the electricity in the heart. So there are a few things need to be done ahead of time when we start the medicine. So the stomach upset problem led to discovery of another medication called rifastigmine. It's similar, but it's different. It has less effect on the stomach. So some doctors, if you have stomach problem, they may go to the other one. And in 2007, this rifastigmine, we found it can be given as a patch. So it overcome the problem with the intestine because it goes from the skin to the blood right away. And that can be very helpful for some people, and it can keep them where they are symptomatically for longer period. So that's the second medication. There is a third one called galantamine. It's similar to the two I mentioned, rifastigmine and donepezil. There is a third medication called memantine. It works differently. This medicine prevents toxicity related to calcium because it targets receptors, stimulates the brain. So this medicine, many times people use it for symptomatic and early. This is actually introduced for moderately severe dementia. It's not for the earlier stages. But over the years, some of us find it can be helpful when people have attention problem, they are very sleepy, so it can have some symptomatic benefit. So these are the key medication that introduced in the early 2000s. And after those medication introduced, there was a period we didn't have anything else to offer. So what happened? So before I go to the updates about medications, there are other key issues that when someone comes to us and we try to treat them, we need to pay attention. As Dr. Griffith mentioned, there is sleep problem, there is mood problem, there is behavioral problem. All of these can be part of the spectrum of the dementia. So the dementia is not only memory problem or communication. When we lose our ability to communicate, usually we adopt a new way of communication, new ways of communication. So if I can't tell you how do I feel, I need to show it to you. And sometimes I become more emotional. And because all of us have our own life, if I'm a caregiver for my mom, my spouse, we are busy. Sometimes I feel frustrated and I'm not I cannot express my frustration, and it can translate into agitation. It can translate into an anxiety. It can translate into depression. So there are other manifestations beside the memory and the thinking. It could have another layer of emotions and behavioral problems. The best treatment is usually adjusting to that. So learning about what to expect and what's the common behavior come with the memory problem is very important, because the caregiver many times can navigate this problem efficiently if they know what to expect. So as I said, if I cannot tell you what I feel, what to expect, what do you expect from me? I still want to express myself, but this time I might express myself in a different way, reflective of where do I stand. And that can be agitation. and that can be frustration. And many times the dementia take away some of our emotional regulation. So part of the job of the brain is to give you that emotional intelligence, make you decide, is it appropriate to talk, or appropriate to touch, or appropriate to do certain things. The dementia can sort of blunt that type of intelligence, makes us expressing ourselves in ways that inconvenient to the people around us. So that's where the learning is very important. That's where the training is very important. And that's where the new reality, recognizing it, is very important. The beloved one is changing as life changes, and that's very important we change with it, okay? So that's important. But there are medications that can help at certain point. Usually I don't advocate to start with medication for behavior right away. We should work it through. We should learn about it. We should adjust ourselves. We should work in our environment. But sometimes that's not enough. So there are medications for that. So we sometimes use medication for behavioral symptoms like agitation, depression, and anxiety. Part of the changes that happens with dementia is sleep. Sleep is very important. So the brain, when it's not resting, it increases the likelihood of difficulty with the memory, difficulty with attention, and it's increased the agitation and the other problems. So it's very important that we recognize if there is sleep problem or not. So the behavioral problems, the sleep problem are also part of what we try to mitigate and treat. Some of the medications we can use are some of the antidepressant that we commonly use. There are some antipsychotic medications. So I will mention those medications. Why? Because I think awareness that those medications are not as safe as we think. It's very important when they are introduced, we work as advocate for our beloved ones, and we need to make sure that we are not pushing for medication treatment. Because many times the doctors, they find themselves either between the unsatisfied customers, I'm sorry for the word, or giving a new medication. So it's very important that there is awareness that there are other ways to treat the behavior. If we introduce the medicine, we should have clear plan why and what we are treating and what's our exit strategy. Because those are symptomatic treatment. They are not supposed to be there for forever. So we need to be thoughtful of that. And when we are advocating, we need to keep that in mind, okay? So I started someone in Lexapro because they are very agitated. So am I planning to keep it forever? It shouldn't be that way. So what I'm trying to accomplish, make the relationship between the two easier. So while you are learning how to deal with it, while you are doing it, the medicine might help you. But we should have some sort of plan when we give those medications because they are not treating the disease, just treating the relationship. So we need to keep that in mind. Beside that, so these, many times this is a logarithm, we use them. I'm not gonna bother you much with these technicalities here, but those are logarithms and how we think. What I told you usually reflect when you visit me or visit Dr. Griffith or visit anyone who handled those type of situations, we think that way. First, I need to understand what's the problem, what's the root cause. I try to address the root cause. If I can't, I will work with you to give you more education. I'll direct you to places where they can offer you education and training. If that didn't work, then we go to treatment. The first line of treatment is the memory medications. So Aricept or Memantine sometimes help with the behavior. If that didn't work, and it's still really a problem, they are depressed, they are agitated, we try to use one of the medications that commonly prescribed. Despite the fact that they are commonly prescribed, they are off-label. What that term means, there is no evidence, studies, that FDA approved those medications for this purpose. So most of the doctors use them because we have experience with them. So as an advocate, you need to know this fact. And we need to tell you that. So I'm giving you this medicine. You need to keep in mind, I'm just addressing this issue. If we can stop the medicine, if we can use the very small, the lowest possible dose, that's how the mindset should be, okay? So those medications can cause set of problems. So many of them need preparation. So we do ECG, we might need to do blood testing, and if the beloved one gets sick, we might need to adjust those medications, stop them, or alter the dosing. So I will shift the conversation now on what's coming in the horizon. So as I said earlier, we have the field of dementia care has faced a lot of frustration and down feelings because we haven't had any real therapeutic that changed the course of the disease. And the medication that we use to change the course of the disease, slow it down or stop it, we call them disease-modifying drugs. So in many other conditions, we have medications that can slow down, let's say, multiple sclerosis or something like this. It can alter the disease so people have better life, have less hospitalization, have less disability. We haven't been successful when it comes to Alzheimer and the related conditions like Lewy body and others, until 2 years ago. So what have changed? So the story behind Alzheimer, this is what happens, we think what happens in the brain. So Alzheimer's disease is characterized by two things. There are proteins in the brain that start accumulating, and they are damaging the brain. So if you want to fix the problem, you need to take care of those proteins. So it's like rust accumulate on the pipes. If you want the pipes to work again, what you need to do? To clean the rust and make the pipes clean. So that was the thinking. So these proteins, the most common or the original one or the initial one is called amyloid protein. It accumulates between the nerves. And after some time, it starts giving the nerves headache. So the nerves are interconnected. There is area called synapse. So the nerves speak with the nerve through that synapse. And that synapse where the information exchange happen. Those synapses, when the amyloid protein start accumulating, they become intoxicated. The amyloid may cause toxicity to those connections. And because of that toxicity, the connections stop working and eventually the nerves start dying. So to stop this process, if we can clean the brain from these proteins, do we have hope to slow the disease? So that's what has been tested for the last 20 or 30 years. And study after study, we have failed to prove this concept until 2001, new medicine introduced by Biogen. It's called aducanumab, which is Adolem, that's what's in the market. But that medication came with a price. So this medicine cleaned the brain from the protein. But when it cleaned the brain from the protein, it caused some leakage in the blood vessels. So there was some swelling and some bleeding inside the brain. But the medicine has some benefit to the thinking and some benefit cleaning the brain from this protein. So we were hopeful to some extent. Then there is another medicine have been approved this year, this year, which also do the same job, but it has cleaner profile. So we started over this couple of years making change or making progress when it comes to the treatment of these conditions, or Alzheimer in particular. But it's still baby steps. Still, those medications are challenging because there are many questions haven't been answered when it came to those medications. One, as I said, those medications cause some swelling and some leakage in the blood vessels, and this leakage can cause one of two things, swelling or bleeding. So in the studies that done for this, both of these side effects considered to be mild and self-limited. That means over time they will go if we stop the medicine. But it's still challenging. There is a new report says that the brain, we noticed when we give those medications, there is some shrinkage in the brain that increase with this medication. We don't know why, but the ventricles and the foldings of the brain become a little bit wider. And there are reports says we need to pay attention to this fact because we don't know the significance of it. So some of this controversy is still ongoing about those medications, but those medications are actually real hope for us, because for the first time over almost 30 years, we have a new medicine that can touch the disease itself, not just we're putting Band-Aid over the wound. Actually, we are trying to touch the wound itself, try to cure it. So we are moving in that direction, and we are making progress, but the progress is slow. It's like many people consider this stage like when we were treating cancer 25, 30 years ago. Many of the medicine weren't very effective, but because the trial and error and the progress and the research that has been going on, eventually many of the cancers now are curable. So we are hopeful this baby steps can lead eventually to bigger breakthroughs, and we can make difference when it comes to treatment of those conditions. So the state of the field, this diagram is not the most recent one. It's a year old, and this field years long period. But in this diagram showing the ideas that have been cooking when it comes to trying to find a cure. The immunity is the first target for the cure. So the medication that I mentioned, both of them are immunity treatment. Immunity are two types. Immunity that exists all the time, we call it innate immunity, like your skin, the hair in your nose, the certain type of blood cells, and there is another immunity that form when we need it. We call it acquired immunity. So we are trying to stimulate that type of immunity to attack the proteins to help us clean them, because those proteins are not supposed to accumulate inside. So this is something wrong, and the body is supposed to take care of it, but it's not capable of doing that. So we are helping the body to clean it up. There are other ideas that have been entertained, because we think that Alzheimer's in particular might be related to the something called metabolic function, like the cholesterol, blood sugar, etc. So these we think are toxic. So there are medications have been introduced and tried. There are many medications in the pipeline trying to figure a way out to clean the brain from the cholesterol, manage the cholesterol, and so on. So there is a lot of ideas that has been cooking, but these two medications are the only one that have been approved by the FDA. You will find many institutes introduce those medications, but the questions are still there about these medications, but they are giving us, all of us, hope. So I'm hopeful that in the next decade or so, we will have more effective medications that can cure the disease, slow it down, and make alteration in the outcome. So as I said, there are several challenges related to efficacy of those medications. Those medications are relatively expensive. Those medications that introduce the immunity medications are actually given as infusion. So the patient needs to go to the hospital, to the infusion center, and get the treatment. The first one, the aducanumab, is given once a month. The newer one that is approved this year, it's actually given twice a month in different dosing. So this is one of the challenges. As I said, the changes in the blood vessels is one of the challenges, and the shrinkage in the brain is another challenge. So this is the current situation with those medications. And I think that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aziz. It's obvious that the landscape is changing week to week almost, and but we know that there are questions out there, so just keep them within you till we finish the rest of the presentation. Isn't this a beautiful venue? It's just such a lovely place, and I always enjoy coming here. Our last speaker is J.T. Hunter. What I will note, we've heard about lifestyle, we've heard about therapeutics, and now we're going to hear about the third leg of the stool, at least the way I think about it, caregiving and caretaking, which is, they're all important for the care of individuals with dementia. J.T. Hunter is the CEO of REMT Care Partner Coaching and co-owner of Equipped, Empowered, and Enabled LLC. He began his journey as a care partner for a family member with dementia when he was only in his mid-20s. He's also a native of West Virginia and a graduate of Marshall University. After his education, for more than 13 years, he's provided mediation, education, and support for both family and professional caregivers. He has been a facilitator for caregiver support groups, spoken to numerous healthcare and long-term care providers nationwide, and participated in a wide variety of work groups focused on making life a little better for those with the dementia and those who care for them. JT?
They left me up here with technology. Just give me one second. Give me 1 second here. Easy, friendly technology. How you guys doing? Hanging in there? I've been around these types of things and doing this for a long time. Sometimes it can be a lot, even though obviously it's okay to laugh sometimes. So if I make you laugh, it's okay. All right, but this is a topic, obviously, most often, if you're not living it, affected by it, you're not coming to hear it. So I know Dr. Griffith kind of asked this, but I want to drill it down a little bit. It's okay if you don't want to tell me. Are there any, I prefer the word care partner, but we'll say caregiver. Any caregivers currently caring? Okay. And I want to tell you this. I will always say I'm a care partner, but I was and for always will be a care partner, okay? And I'll explain what I mean by that word in a second, but let's get through the not so fun stuff first, okay? So here's the boring stuff, who I am, these big fancy titles they give me, and the important thing for you is to make sure you have my contact information. So on my closing slide, I'll show this again, but if you want to click or take a picture, feel free, okay? So let me ask you the tough question. You don't have to share if anyone wants to. I have plenty of examples myself. So you've heard the big A word. Maybe if you're like me, my loved one knew what those words meant when she heard them too. So I'll start with her. Again, let's get this out of the way. She turned to me and said, my worst fears come true, losing my mind. I say that to say we all know the connotations, the words, could take you back in history of the way we've described it, losing their marbles, a little crazy, so on and so on. My point is not a bright, happy, sunny connotation when we hear that on both sides, okay? And I think that's where we need to spark. So this is kind of a setup. But again, if anyone wants to share, what was the first thing you feel, emotion, when you heard those words or when it entered your life? Sorry? Despair. Anyone else? Fear? Fear of a lot. I'm just going to have to go here, but we all know this. Has anyone met a survivor? 0 survivors. And again, not to dwell on this, but I want to make this point. Can any of you guys relate to any of these? There's a lot more. You could call it stress, emotion, but these are a lot of things affecting us and sources of our concerns right now. Fear of the unknown, no treatments, well, on some level, no cure. But all these other things that it starts to do, and I'm talking about us as the care partners. And then there's this thing. Like we need this. Has anyone heard of this? Caregiver fatigue timeline? Again, here just to give an illustration, I think this is very interesting and, well, eye-opening when I first discovered this. I was a caregiver. You know what it says in the first 1 to 18 months? From this evidence, what's supposed to happen in our lives? Well, at this point, you may still be anxious to provide that care. It could be, quote, early in the stage. So you may still feel optimistic, maybe somewhat of a superhero, like we'll get through this, is what I'm meant to do. She would have done it for me. all those things, but you're still holding some of those, or most of those social stables are still in place, okay? Let me just jump down to less than 2 years into this, okay? Now, you won't know, and I will say it, and these doctors can verify this if I'm wrong. That journey, talking about Alzheimer's, 2 to 20 years or more, depending on the person, all those things. So down about 2.5 years in, okay? Now emotional and physical resources drained. Caregiving consumes day and night. Outside help dwindled away. The reason I'm telling you this, you're not alone. You're not a superhero. In fact, say, it's going to be tough. And I think that's important because if I came here and said it'll get better, it'll be easy. May not be true because our journeys are all different. I want you to know I've walked the journey. I do this because it's personal. Can you read this? Can we say this out loud? Caregiving's not for wimps. So no matter what, self-doubt, worry, any of those things, the guilt lives here. Remember this, okay? First of all, it's not for wimps. If it was easy, you wouldn't need any of us. And then some people mean well, and they care, but if you had this thrown at you, you need to take care of yourself. Why don't you just take a break? All this self-care. I forget who raised their hands, but easier said than done, right? Or, how dare me? How dare I go have some fun, do something nice, and something goes wrong? Or I get that phone call. How dare me? But here's all those recommendations we heard about sleep, the exercise, all important and true, right? But all this stuff is coming at us really, really fast, and we may not, probably don't feel like doing any of it, and don't have the time, and it's not the most important thing. So it is about them. The dichotomy is, you probably need to be in the position, who knows or no one's ready to back you up. So there's an element of, we got to take care of ourselves. I don't mean this, okay? Unrealistic. I'll go ahead and tell you, I didn't realize till recently, that's not me on a rock. I can see how someone thought, I never realized that's not me. But I think sometimes that's the fantasy. I wish I had this kind of life. Peaceful. Never have it. Or feel like you won't have it. So today I could have told you a lot of things. I could have tried in 20 minutes to tackle those behaviors, those responses, and all that. They would have dragged me off the stage because it's a lot. So I thought about what can I give everybody, and you'll have a Q&A so we can get more specific, but what we all need to know, wherever we are in this journey. So let me start slowly. Get connected. I call myself a coach, again. These two nice folks here and some of the resources today. How are you connected? Do you have someone that can maybe advise, but also has been through it, understands? If you use technology, good and bad, but if you don't have someone here in person, can I connect to someone, a chat room? There are Alzheimer's Association approved chat rooms, protected as much as they can. How are you connected to someone? We got to get these feelings out somehow. And we're probably afraid of being judged. They're going to lock me up or they're not going to understand. But we know if we carry it, it's going to come out in relationships, in jobs, and other things. So sounds easy. You've probably heard it. Get connected. Now, we got to know our opponent. As Dr. Aziz pointed out, Alzheimer's is the most common disease that causes dementia. I'm estimating, but there's at least over 100 other diseases that cause dementia, and then there's certain conditions. So again, is it truly Alzheimer's? That's up to the doctors, but if you get a diagnosis of dementia, hang in there and encourage them. We need to get that title. What's driving it? And then we need to understand the tendencies, the commonalities, things that may be heading our way, because again, your coach is going to say we need to be prepared. But remember, you're in a new place. I know I'm preaching to the choir. It's a new world. It's a different world. I don't tell anyone what to do, but I'll tell you this. I remember the day I said what she would have always said to me in this moment, what I thought was right, what I was raised to do and say. And do you know it got a different result than I expected? Or it didn't work. I felt frustrated, but that was the world I was from. I convinced, and I need you to understand, know how hard it is and understand what I'm doing. That may not be realistic in the way we need it in the world of Alzheimer's. So you need to know that. So you don't keep banging your head against the wall, right? But there's also some language changes, you probably noticed, that come along with this. Certain phrases, certain words, and meanings are different. But also how we communicate is different. I'm going to do best in my time just to give you some quick things, okay? So the language changes. First of all, those responses are different, but also their language changes, okay? So certain phrases and things have a certain meaning I want to give you. Have you ever heard the I want to go home or I need to go home, okay? Simple explanation. Typically, we're talking about childhood home, okay? Not for everybody, many of us, symbolism of safe, comfort, where mom and dad were, where it'll be okay. Anyone had young children? Remember that first sleepover? I'm a big boy, I'm fine. Then you get the call, right? So when they say this to you, here's the flashing sign. First of all, I'm scared, I'm frightened, this doesn't make sense. Help me. So we went to the emotion behind those words, okay? But there's a clue. The other thing, real quickly, they mention that place. I got to go to work. They mention that person who's no longer here. Flashing sign. The only memory I have is that they're alive, and I do. So I'm slowly walking here to a bigger point. Let me ask you a question. Has anyone heard these phrases like therapeutic fib? Maybe just lie to them? Well, here's the problem with that. I told you to fib. I told you to lie. It's going to be tough. We're in a new world. Language is different. So let me give you this tip, an idea. I hate the word therapeutic fib. Hate the word lie, because we're not. But in this new world, where they're living, they're working, what would make sense to them? Starting point. Real reason they didn't have to work? So you're going to go into work on your day off. This is our time. Detour. Ready for the next one. Simple changes, but my point is this is new. I'm going to burst the bubble. You will fail. You will make mistakes. You're going to mess up. Here's the thing, and I'm not being funny. Okay to laugh. I'll use my loved one. When I said in that facility, you're home, it wasn't her home. When she couldn't find that word, and I said it's okay, it wasn't okay. She told me. Let me change my responses and my answers. In this world, it's not about the facts, believe it or not. It's about the emotion they're displaying. Their world is 93% nonverbal. So how am I delivering it? Do I look confident? Do I look like I want to be here or in a rush? This will create a certain mood. So it's like both of these gentlemen pointed out, we can create a certain mood, have a lot of control in it, but they're watching us to say, how am I supposed to feel and act? So I hope that empowers you in a way and doesn't frighten you. My point is you're going to mess up, make mistakes, but here's the thing. My grandmother forgot that I said that. Okay? Guess what? Next day, I'm in the same situation. But this time, I said we're here. Oh. But I had to fail in a way maybe to get there. Do you know what got me up every day for 8.5 years? She'll move on before I do. That's okay. I'm new at this. Trying. And back to when I told her it's okay and she said it's not, she was right. Aha. take your time because I'm not going anywhere. As much as I can give you in this short time frame. Let's go back to you, though. Keep something for yourself. In my support groups, your ticket out of that door is to tell us what you're either going to keep for yourself or try to do for yourself. Sometimes I get the, like, that's crazy. Well, the group will help you. And it may just be sitting on the porch 5 minutes, no interruptions. But I've got to coach you back up to know that's just as important. This fails if you go down. And you have the right. So be gentle with yourself. A lot of times my answer to the guilt is going to mess up, going to make mistakes, but I'm not walking away. Okay? Breathe. Really. Talked about dementia can shut down departments. Well, we can forget to breathe too. Okay? But let me explain this to you. I'll be honest, when I first heard this, I was too stressed. Sounds really silly. Not going to take away my problem. I probably taught people about it, but the last to do it. Till that moment, leaving the facility, had it. I tried to get to my car to scream. Before I got to my car, it came out. I saw this sweet lady with 3 small children quickly rushing them across the street because the crazy man's out there cursing. When I got in my car and I said, this is it, I can't do it, I have no tools right now. And it dawned on me, never tried it. I'll probably be able to then tell my teacher that was so stupid. But out of necessity, despair, I tried it. 5 deep breaths, in and out for 5 seconds. Some evidence can do something, can bring you a little bit back to level. If you're like me, I get it. But you also have your moment where you're going to try it. This can be done in the bathroom, in your car, in front of the person, but sometimes we need that recharge. Just bring us down. I can think a little bit better, okay? And the B+ care partner, I hope I'm not bursting a bubble. Don't try to be the A+ caregiver. Let me explain this. In school, I was not the A+ student. All right, so I didn't shoot for it. B+, B, I can get a good college still, mom will be pleased, have some kind of career. That was more realistic. So I may get a D on a test every now and then. You know, may get an A, but then I may get a C. I can live with that. I'm not perfect. I'm doing great. We need to understand this. Our expectations, especially early on. Never thought I'd have that moment where I'm like, I got to get away from her. We'll all have it, so don't put yourself on that pedestal. And even me up here talking and telling you these things and teaching, I failed. That's how I know them. I'm no different, okay? So let's not be that A+ caregiver. It's going to bring you down, and it's not realistic. Okay, but know your rights. Did you know as caregivers you have rights? Not talked about a lot. There's actually something called the Caregiver Bill of Rights, okay? You can find this on my website. I'm thrilled with this crowd, but I definitely didn't bring enough handouts, but I have some. But these are about you. And when I was in about 2 years, I've discovered this, and I would read this thing and say, really? Do I? So sometimes having this on your bathroom mirror, in your wallet, in your purse, in your car, make a few copies. That moment that guilt's telling you, you have a response and a reinforcement, because trying to do that thing for yourself gets harder over time. We need a response to that guilt, okay? So I want you to know you have rights as a caregiver, and you're going to need those reminders. Now, let me ask you this. Do you guys have you ever had someone, maybe any setting, say, if you ever need anything, let me know, or I can help, or those types of things? And usually sometimes we take them as, well, they're just being nice, or there's no way they could handle this, or it's embarrassing. But if you ever are given an opportunity, or someone has said that to you, like most of us, you may have turned it down for whatever reason, but you missed an opportunity. This came from a caregiver, another care partner, sharing it with you all. She came up to me one day and showed me these like business cards, okay? She had gone to Home Depot printed these off herself, typed them up. And so every time, this was amazing, every time someone said that, God bless them, guess what? They got a card. Here's your task. And she allowed me to take a picture of just a few. But you've noticed none of these say, come sit with my person. She's proud of her. You may need that. Make pies and stock my freezer. She loved making pies, didn't have the time. We found a way to keep that in her life. This would be mine. Can we play golf and not keep score? Bring church to me. And the last one, very, very efficient. Can we have tea and help me sort my pills for the week? The reason I'm showing this is, do you have your list ready? You could write it down on a piece of paper and make copies. You could go the card route. Here's the thing. If they offer, they ask, we take it as genuine. So it's on them, okay? But think about these things. What are you missing? What do you need to keep and incorporate back in your life? They ask, give it to them, okay? Because the point of it is this. You need to be in that position. Can't do it all yourself. But also you need to be in that position. So this is where I want to focus today. I want to talk about some of these options. I'm not going to lie, in West Virginia, one of the oldest states, we do not have what we need. Especially when you get out of Kanawha County, it's even less. And my job is to be honest and tell you what is there, okay? So again, you may have heard of these or had these shouted out at you before. I'm going to go through as quick as I can and then kind of explain. Area Agency on Aging. What this is if it exists, if it's out there, you're looking for it, how to connect to it, your area on agency will know about it and can at least give you that information, give you that phone number. My last slide will give you some contacts for those places, okay? But everyone should know about that. Respite providers. In Kanawha County, statewide, your county senior program provides Fair and Lighthouse services. Now, honesty. Maybe waiting list, not enough staff, or we can't afford, or many reasons. But starting points. I want you to know, maybe when that time comes, that's where you start first. Look into it. Very affordable. First option. Then we could get to home health or medical home health. I want you to know this about home agencies. You hear the word home health, but you need to know this. In dementia world, a lot of times what we need more is watchful companionship. There's not a major medical need or issue. So there's two sides of home health. Medical services and needs, which may be covered by Medicare. Unfortunately, this type, watchful companionship, not. But I want you to know, and sometimes, again, we have to do what we have to do, or we can only afford what we can afford, but life-saving, even if it's 1 day a week. Some of these places don't have minimum hour requirements, okay? So just know. Adult daycare. 10 years ago, probably had about 8 in the state. Maybe legitimate ones, 2 to 3 in the state. That might be a stretch. There is one in Kanawha County, okay? It's the West Virginia Bureau of Senior Services can connect you. I'll have the number. It's not for everybody, and it depends on where you are in the stages, but I want you to know it exists. It's a good program there. And sometimes, again, relief, breaks, so I can continue to work and function and do those things. I want you to know about it. Palliative care. When you hear this word, you hear hospice a lot of times. Okay, let me just say this. I don't endorse and don't get anything from any of these sources I'm talking about. I want you to know palliative care does, Kanawha Hospice Care does provide palliative care. Some hospitals do, but palliative care can be offered from day 1 of diagnosis. Did you know that? Early stage, day 1 of diagnosis, palliative care could be offered. Service to you as a caregiver too. What is going on, this new thing, I'm not sure what to do. You've got extra layer of support, referral, and more with palliative care. I want you to know it exists. It's a neat thing. And sometimes when we hear that word hospice attached, we freak out. It has nothing to do with end of life, okay? Local organizations, some of those were here tonight. Some of those are in your community. And sometimes it's like a piece to the puzzle. I've got this piece, Dr. Aziz has this piece, Griffith has this piece. Together, we can make a puzzle. So again, building your team, knowing your support systems around you, I want you to notice some of these resources. And these are mixed from education, also helplines, places I can call and say without judgment, I love her, but she's being a witch today. She knows what she said that thing. How are you going to get that out? Some of these care lines. If Lewy body dementia, the Lewy line. I love that name. But again, it's an empowerment resource, and we need to get those feelings out, okay? Last one, patrol safety. It's new. It's actually created by the Hurricane Police Department in West Virginia, and it's more that fear of what if something happens, I'm not there, or my loved one still lives in their home, okay? They can provide a QR code that can go on a window somewhere in the home. It's protected, so I couldn't just scan it. You have to be approved, put in the book by the police, but immediate with that scan, the information I need to know and who to contact. Could be a game changer. Again, I can still go to work and feel a little bit safer, or they're an hour away, they still live in their home. It's a great thing to know about, okay? So you could either call Officer TJ Dillon or visit their website. I think it's already starting to be used in Kanawha County and spreading. I want you to know about it. The last one, if you ever need it, an app. So again, God forbid, what if that person is lost or had wandered? There's an app that you can share with the police department that could have the critical information, the de-escalation technique. Don't say this. She thinks she goes to church. The vital things we need, but also if they still drive or mobile, another way to maybe monitor and know where they are safely. I know I'm giving you a lot. I know I've probably gone a little bit over my 20 minutes. I hope you feel empowered. We're going to have a Q&A, but thank you guys, and thank you for everything you do every day, okay?
Thank you so much, JT, and thank you to all of our speakers. Please give them another round of applause. A couple of things before I start the Q&A. I want you to know that if you have a specific interest in one of the PowerPoints, please let them know. I'm sure they can send it to you if you just give them their email address, if that information is important to you. I also want to thank, from the Education Department at CAMC, Billy Clark and Jay Ripley and Chris Cobb, who handled our technical needs to make this go seamlessly. There are also, don't leave too early because there are 2 drawings that are going to happen at the end. Pardon me? There are 5. Okay, well, thank you very much. I didn't realize that. Okay, well, we've got a few minutes for some questions. I would ask that you direct them to one of the 3 speakers or to all of them. Please try to be concise. We'll try to get as many questions in as we can. Does anybody have a question? Yes.
Prevention. Do I take it from the absence of, you talk about coffee, that I take it from the absence of addressing 2 common things that almost everybody here has to do with, do not have anything to do with prevention nor cure. That being alcohol and cannabis. Cannabis, recently I know that in some of the research that's been doing on medicinal cannabis, buried down in it, you're going to find some stuff of therapy of prostate cancer. Alcohol or cannabis without tetrahydrocannabinol. Play any role at all in the prevention.
Let me repeat the question. It's related to prevention, cannabis and alcohol. Pro or con?
excuse me. There is, I'm not aware of any information that would suggest that using CBD or THC is at all preventative for the prevention of dementia. I am aware of one recent study looking at CBD products trying to treat agitation in patients with dementia that did show some favorable response, and so, but I think that needs more study. So I think my answer would be, I don't think there's any evidence that use of THC or CBD products would reduce your chance of dementia. Remains to be seen if it's going to have any beneficial effect on some of the behavioral problems we see.
Thanks. Okay. Okay. Let me. What's your question? Question on T, positive or negative for any of the speakers, and please use the microphone.
Sorry. I cannot quote you on T. Do you know, Dr. Aziz? I do not. So I cannot answer that. I will try to find it out for you.
Other questions? Yes. Can you stand up, please, so we can hear you. I can come. Yes. Have you heard of Brain Saver, which is is it a supplement or a drug, Dr. Aziz?
My voice is. So,
Okay. 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 Okay.
so I'm sorry. So there are many things out there. It's still in the research stage. And despite the fact in the news, many of those, the news stuff is not fully proven, and it might be just because the news like to magnify things.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. So the management is actually that's part of the challenge here in West Virginia, Charleston. Many times you need a team. So it's not just medication. There is education, there is environment control, there is sleep management. There are many things need to happen simultaneously in order to control the situation. And approaching it as medical condition that one medication can fix it is actually very misguided approach. So that's what we are facing. If you ask me, I'm not pro-medicine in general. I don't like medications for patients who have dementia. So it's not, sometimes this less is better, not more is better. So, but the trend is, part of bigger trend, people try to find something to give you. Sometimes it's I try to take away from you. So sometimes we go to the medication that she has been taken for a long time, and it might be the reason.
I'm going to tell you that we're going to, at the end of the event, all three of our speakers will stay here. So I'm sure there are a lot of questions that are probably best answered privately and in a dialogue. Other questions for them right now? Yes.
My father has like 10, 12 different medicines he's taking, one of which I know is at least one of those dementia ones. How do you find out if like any of that is affecting him more or not? Like I'm not a big fan of his doctor per se, but I also don't know what other doctor to maybe get to him that's more like a geriatric doctor, those kind of things, because that's what concerns me the most. he's 90. Does he really need all these drugs? Which one's gonna like affect him the most?
I'll try my best. She wants to know, how do you know which drugs to give someone when there's so many options?
So this is very important question because the medication might be started for a reason, and the reason is already resolved. So it's very good practice as advocate to ask the question and go over the medications. So some medications you can figure out on your own. So medication for heart, medication for blood pressure, they probably need it, okay? But medication for any type of symptoms, you need to question them over and over and over. So if I give you something for pain, you need to question me every time you visit me. Do my dad still need it? Because if the pain is gone, why the medicine? And does he still need the same dose? So despite the fact he might still need it, but over time, pain might fade away because there is many modulations the body start taking, decrease our need. The same thing, agitation. It can be a manifestation of earlier stage. As the dementia and the cognitive issues progress, the need will disappear because the patient is a new stage, new chemistry, a new brain actually. So that question needs to be asked over and over, but in general, many medication can be trimmed out, can be taken out once we make the diagnosis, because some medication are preventative for diseases in 5, 10, 15 years, and there is no need for those medications. Example, cholesterol medication, sometimes we try to minimize the dose as much as we can. So yes, many medication you need to question them. This is sometimes if too many medications, that's one reason to ask for referral to specialist. So that's the best advice I can give you, okay? Yeah, cognitive specialist. Yes. So,
Other questions? I have a question.
Is it on? Okay. Yeah, so to follow another couple comments about this question. There are standard recommendations for what's called de-prescribing in geriatric population, with the notion that many people, particularly those over the age of 85 or 90, probably don't need a lot of preventative treatments. The preventative treatments have already done their job. You made it past the finish line. So, and then, you know, as a geriatric psychiatrist, I tell trainees I've made my career out of taking people off medicine, because many medicines have adverse effects on cognition, and a specialist like myself or Dr. Aziz would have knowledge about which ones would be likely to be impairing a person's cognition, and let's get rid of these. Sometimes that's a hard sell because the patient or the family thinks, oh no, they've been on that medicine for 30 years, and doctor, you know, person I had on the pedestal said he had to stay on that medicine. It's tough to sometimes to get people off of medicines, but particularly pain medicine, tranquilizers, things of that nature need to go if at all possible, because they do adversely affect cognition. So yeah, and either of us would be happy to see your relative.
Yes, Debbie. Yes, can either of you speak to clinical trials that are available to us here in Charleston?
actually, I'm not aware of any for dementia, for Alzheimer here. So we tried to introduce one a year ago, but it didn't work through. It's called iCare through Biogen. And hopefully in the near future we can, but it's hard to get the clinical trials because there is a lot of prerequisites that we are not capable of providing yet. So no, I'm not aware of any here. Therapeutic-wise, there are other trials. We are doing small trials It's investigators initiated, but it's not for the general population. I'm doing one with black lung. Probably Dr. Griffith doing other small, but we haven't had the pharmaceutical, the big ones in here in the area.
They tend to go to bigger cities where they can enroll large numbers of patients. And so it is hard to attract large drug trials to West Virginia. And again, you know, the best place to look is the NIMH website. And they will, and there's a number of, NIMH is National Institute of Mental Health, and they have, they'll list on there the trials for various mental illnesses like dementia or bipolar illness or things like that, and where they're being done. And usually there's contact information on the website. Typically, closest ones to here would be places like Baltimore, at Johns Hopkins, at Pittsburgh, some of them in Columbus, some in Lexington, Kentucky, typically. But you could look on the NIMH website and find what trials are being done for what disease you're interested in.
It's 8 o'clock. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I hope that you found this a useful 90 minutes. I certainly learned a lot tonight. And I want to thank them once more for their being here. They are not leaving. They will be here if you have specific questions, and I'm sure many of you do, that can be best answered with a one-on-one type of information. Are you ready for the drawings? Don't forget about the surveys. This is how we know what you all want to hear. So you'll be getting something by email in the very near future. We encourage you to fill it out and let us know what you like. Thank you so much, and I hope you win. What can I do here?
We have Foundation,
Did you get the winner?
yeah, Leanne Preston.
Leanne Preston. Are they still here?
Joan Keller.
Joan Keller. Joan Keller. Okay. Is that it? Is that the last one? Oh no, okay, man. This is a shirt?
Yeah, from the Foundation. Carolyn.
Carolyn Farmer? Oh, we have diplomas. This is a medical school, so don't forget when you leave there. Are they suitable for framing? Yes. Okay. Don't forget. Maggie McKinney. What's the last one?
Myra Lilly.
Myra?
Yeah.
Myra Lilly.
Sarah Sally
Sa-
Smith.
Sally Smith. There's Sally, okay. What's this?
These are two from Jada.
We need to draw, okay.
Let's just call the number out. Get your blue tickets
Is
out.
it 284? Is that the all four? 476 284. These are for bags. All right, let's try another one. 476 315. Connie, thank you. She's got it for you. We got one more. What's that one? 270. Thanks, Connie. 270. Anybody have that? We can have a knife fight for it, maybe? 285. Okay. Thank you. Again, remember, these folks will be here. She's got your, thanks, Shelley. I trust you. Good night.